hearing is, your Christian faith, your spiritual journey through which you came to know who you are and whose you are, literally opened up some new pathways in your thinking, in your heart, the way you process emotions, the way you process your thoughts. And also, maybe it's helping you to even grow in your gifts and move towards your destiny. So, on that note, I do know, Dr. John, you're a professional leadership trainer as well. You lead people, you lead organizations, you lead a community of different things. So, I believe growth mindset is a very important key to be a successful leader. Because, if you look around, anything which has life has to grow. A seed grows, a baby grows. I believe in the same way, these gifts or these capacities or skills or talents we have, it also needs to grow. Otherwise, we're actually dying a slow death, we like it or not. Now, as a leader who leads others, how do you manage to stay in that growth mindset, or how do you manage to stay teachable? Can you share with our audience?
I think we never stop learning really, just depending on what phase in life we are. There are things I've learned today that I didn't know yesterday. Um, and I think every leader needs to cultivate some fundamental habits of growing. And growing takes, uh, growing is natural. Growing, you don't strive to grow or struggle to grow. But if you put the right nutrients in place, growth can be natural. Fruit bearing, a tree doesn't fight the fruit,
Yeah.
but if the right nutrients comes its way, they can grow. I have seen when I was growing up, really, I didn't have someone to train me in leadership or tell me everything I needed to know in the early years. Uh, I have found that rubbing shoulders with people that have done a journey ahead of us is a tremendous blessing in many of our lives. Somewhere on my journey, I came across some great leaders whose purpose in life was much larger than themselves. And so when I saw those leaders, I began to ask them questions. I begin to ask them for their time. I begin to purposefully say, I need to pursue some of these people to learn what they have, to glean from the years of learning. So I think the first thing as a leader that wants to grow, I think it's very important to understand the environment in which you are planted. If you are planted in an arid environment without much resource, without much water, without much fertilizer, without the right conditions, you may be a great leader, but you may be stunted. But I believe God brings on your journey some great leaders. I think great leaders go looking for great leaders too. I remember this was the year 2003, and I went to a conference. This was in India, and money was short. I was very early in my ministry, in the career, the organization I was leading, and money was short, and I just didn't have it. And I went to this conference where I met this amazing leader. And as I sat under him and I was learning, and I remember he pulled a few of his books out and he said, I want to give these books away to the one who has come for the farthest for this conference. So he had some of his books and he said, all right, so who's come who's come the farthest for this conference? Someone put his hand up and he said, I've come. Yeah, he said, how many? He said, well, I've come 6 miles. And then someone else said, no, I've come 10 miles. Someone else lifted up his hand. He said, I've come 21 miles for this conference. And I was in the second row. I lifted up my hands. I said, how about you? I said, I've come 2,000 miles for this conference.
Wow.
And, there was something, he looked at me and he said, then the book is yours. Something struck a chord in his heart. And I knew that was a God moment. After the conference, I mean, of course, I was very keenly learning. I was asking questions, all of that. After the conference, I walked up to him and I said, sir, can I ask you a question? He said, what? I said, if you don't mind, could you be my leadership mentor? And I looked at him and I said, I'm willing to pay. I said, I'm willing to pay you in dollars. Now, I didn't have a dollar in my hand. And I didn't have the foggiest idea where I was going to get, but you know what? I was telling myself, if I can get him to say yes, Then I'll figure out where to get the dollars from to pay him. But let me just, he looked at me and he said, something in my heart tells me to tell you yes.
Wow.
And he said, and for you, it's going to be for free. You see, if you want to be a leader, one of the first things you must have in your heart is you must have a passionate pursuit of something. One, you got to be passionate. Secondly, you got to be purposeful, which means you have to plan out certain steps ahead. If I want to be a leader, I have to influence people to want to follow me, for which I need a vision. I need to have a clear vision that and an ability to communicate that vision to other people. So, what is leadership? Leadership is, in simplest terms, it's the ability to influence somebody to go from point A to point B. They want to follow you. In most companies, they want to follow you for the money, but in voluntary organizations, they want to follow you for the purpose in itself, because the purpose is larger than money. It may be God, it may be people, it may be just happiness, that you wipe somebody's tears or you put food on somebody's table. But they just that in itself becomes purpose. So as a leader, I believe there is leadership in everybody. Everybody has leadership. You have leadership. A mother at home feeding the children has tremendous leadership. She's raising some wonderful people, and she's a leader in her own right. Everybody has leadership, is intending to take someone from point A to point B. So if you have that, you need to be passionate about what you're doing. I believe you need to be purposeful about what you're doing. For that, if you don't know anything about it, we'll start asking somebody. Secondly, go read what you can. Look up material. Talk to somebody who you know is doing that well. My passion was to change the world, but if you ask me in the last few years, my biggest dream today, my biggest dream in my entire life is I want to be a good husband and I want to be a good father. And this is my biggest dream. Of course, my other dreams haven't died out. I'm still want to be a world changer. But for me, being a great husband and great father is my biggest dream. And I want my children to rise up, and I want them to, as they go out on that journey, I want them to look back and say, hey, that was a great ride with dad and mom. Now, so because I had that purpose, I told myself, I want to read up everything I can on this. I want to figure out how it's done. I've never done this journey before. I want to talk to people that have had raised successful kids. So you need passion, that is intrinsic. You need purpose. That is something you're going out and be purposeful, intentional. But I believe for those of you that have known the power of God on your life, you need to know how to pray. And I've seen a lot of people with tremendous passion and tremendous purpose, but just didn't know how to lean on God, just didn't know how to pray. Because I believe when you pray, the hand of God comes upon your hand. It's not just your strength, your passion, and your purpose. There's that invisible help that comes, that gives you that extra nudge, that gives you that last strength, that gives you that, when you want to give up and throw in the towel, like I've wanted to. Many times in my life, I've wanted to throw in the towel. And I said, God, can you use someone like me? I'm done. I'm just done with this, especially leadership. I wanted to give up leadership many times because leadership is hard. Leadership is painful. Someone said like this years ago, to live up above with the friends you love is glory. But to live down below with the friends you know is quite another story. All right. So leadership is a different ballgame. Living in heaven with all your loved friends is great, it's glory, but to live down below with the friends you know is quite another story. So I wanted to give up many times, except for prayer. That's when I went into the prayer closet. I shut the door and I wept before God and I said, God, I think you picked the wrong person. I wish you could find someone else.
Wow.
Because I just don't believe I have it in me. I want to give up, Lord. I am just so tired. I am so broken. The world doesn't like me. My friends don't like me. Nobody likes me, Lord. I don't even know if you like me anymore. I mean, you those moments. And I went back to the right place. I went back to the place of prayer. And there I found the love of the Father coming and just holding me all over again and saying, you know what? This whole journey did not begin because you were purposeful and because you had, because you were passionate. This whole journey began because I believed in you and I called you. God believes in us and calls us. He doesn't call the best.
Yeah.
He just calls us because he believes in us. And he also calls us not because we're absolutely prepared. He calls us because he's going to do the journey with us.
Yeah.
He promises that he's not going to leave you and he's not going to forsake you. He didn't say the journey is not going to be rough, but he said, I'll go with you. That's what he told Moses. One day God called Moses, and the call of God was so interesting. God, when Moses was feeling so full of himself and strength, he's going to eat that. I'm going to let these Israelites deliver them. He goes and kills an Egyptian, and he has to run away with his own strength and wisdom. He had to run away. 40 years into the wilderness, he was not smelling like an Egyptian anymore. He was smelling like an Israelite shepherd
Yeah.
out there in the wilderness. He goes out to the burning bush, standing in front of the burning bush, and God calls him, and he asks that interesting question. He says, God, um, uh, who am I? Who am I that I should go? And God answers him and tells him in Exodus 3, God answers and says, I will go with you. Now, that's a very interesting question. The answer to give. I read that and thought in my heart, wait a minute. He's asking, who am I? And God says, I will go with you. God was saying, well, don't even bother answering that question, who am I? Because I'll go with you. I know you put all of yourself together, it's not going to amount to much. But if I go with you, you and I together, now that's going to be a formidable team. I'll go with you. So if you're pursuing your dream, I want you to know you ain't alone. God called you, and God's going to go with you. Then Moses looked at God and said, but wait a minute. Who are you? I mean, I don't know you. Just who are you? I mean, yeah, and God looks at him and says, I am who I am, or I am that I am. It actually translates like this. It actually translates, I shall be all that I said I shall be, which means, I'm going to be everything that I said I shall be. Maybe some of you listening to me tonight on this show, maybe you've not known God. And like Moses, you are asking, God, who am I that you should use me? And God wants you to know that God wants to go with you. And maybe like Moses, you're asking, but who are you? Who are you? Who are you, Lord? And I want you to know, if you don't know God as your Father, as your Savior, as your Creator, I want you to know you are fearfully and wonderfully made, tremendously made, beautifully made. You're not an accident. You're not a mistake. You are a tremendous design of God. You may have had many mistakes in life like I have, but I want you to know God specializes in getting us messes and making something merciful out of the mess that we've been in. And so who are you? And God says, I am that I am. I shall be everything that I promised I will be. So I want to tell you that God's going to be everything that God's promised to you that you'll be. If you would just ask him, God, I want you to be my Lord. I want you to come into my life. And just like Dr. John's saying that he's had this encounter with you and how you transformed his life and leadership and his journey and destiny and purpose in life, I want you to say that. And I'm sure when you come not only from a place of passion, and you come not only from a place of purpose, you will find God in that place of prayer like Moses did. When I wanted to give up, that was my strength. That's the place of prayer. I came right back to prayer. And I want you to know every leader goes through those moments, those lowest moments they want to give up. I don't know of one leader who's not wanted to give up. And I don't know of one person whom God wanted to give up on. So God is with us. And so do the journey, purpose, passion, and prayer. And I think these are fundamental, powerful things. And that God will fill you with his power when you get into that place of prayer. Yeah.
I'm sure we all have heard about this 80-20 rule, and it's used, across the finance circles and organization. Basically, it says about the 20% of the world's population owning 80% of the world's wealth. Or in another way, we can put it as, the rich getting richer, the poor getting poorer, so the divide gets bigger and deeper. Now, if you were to apply it in the leadership context, I've seen in my personal journey that sometimes there's a tendency among leaders to invest in people who are, already smarter, or making some strides of success, or it's called, I think, the survival of the fittest.
Yeah.
So even before I ask you to unpack that question for our audience, I want to just share a bit on my journey. Many years ago, I walked into one of the church communities you lead back in India, in Trivandrum. I walked in as a totally broken, depressed young adult. Forget about giving up on my dreams. I was on the verge of giving up on myself in many fronts. But just, journeying through that community and along with you, I found purpose. My dream was restored. In fact, most of the things I'm doing today and who I am today has played a big role into it. Now, my question to you, Dr. John, is as a leader, how do you manage to be intentional, and how do you find joy in investing and pouring and mentoring into people who might think as a failure, or as an average, less average, who might not have it all together outside, but you have a gift to see the gold in the dirt? How do you get to do that, if you can share it with our audience?
Well, that's a very hard question, because for every person that says their life has been transformed coming into our lives and being part of a community, I'm sure there'll be hundreds others that said that they came and passed by and moved on. I think there's a I think every one of us is so beautifully made and fearfully and wonderfully made according to the Bible. We're so precious. We are a diamond in the raw.
Yes.
And I think that uh, that I just like God believes in people. I've done my journey of life believing in people. I've come to the lowest of the lows in my life at some point, and God has believed in me. I believe in people too. But I do know people are on different places on their journey. And one of the first things I do is to just love people for who they are, and not to love them for where I can sign them up into.
Wow.
Some people come and if you could just love them and just do a meal with them and share a story with them, or inspire them, ignite that fire in their heart again, or just love on them and heal them. I believe something. It's just we're just one of the people that God uses in people's lives. So as far as I'm concerned, because God has seen value in me, I think there's value in everybody, every single person. And people coming into our lives. Of course, I've not had the time for everybody, because as the community grows, as it runs into hundreds or thousands over periods of times, there's no time. We've got to build a process and a system in where you pour into people and they pour into others and they pour into others. And I find out today that many of the people I poured into today through the years are pouring into other lives, and so many people are out there whom I don't know, and who have just been blessed because of the chain of discipling or people's lives we poured into. I remember I lead a ministry called Trudby, that's the repairers of the breach, from Isaiah 58 and 12. And I remember one day I walked into a church service many years ago. I walked into a church service in a particular city. As I'm walking in, the usher stands at the door and looks at me and says, "Hello, sir, welcome. Is this your first time to our church?" And I looked at the usher and I said, "Well, not really. I've been here before." The day the church was planted was a French church. The day the church was planted, I was part of the first service. I led worship that Sunday. So now, many years later, I'm walking in from the back. The usher is trying to make me feel comfortable. "Oh, okay. So you've come here before. You're not from the city?" I said, "No, I'm not from the city." "What's your name?" I said, "My name's John." I said, "I'm just, I've come for a conference." "Oh, you've come for a conference. You've come for Trotby's fivefold conference." I said, "Well, yeah, I've come for Trotby's fivefold conference." And I quietly went and sat down. That day, I actually felt like that was a great, successful day. The usher knew the ministry and the message, but the usher did not know the
Wow.
messenger, the one who started the work. I found that as one of the greatest success stories of my life, where the messenger may change, but the message must go on. And I've believed in people like that. When I see the diamond in the rough, I believe that if I could polish their lives, the light could go on from their lives into other lives. And those diamonds can polish other diamonds. And then the light can go from there into those other diamonds. I believe that, mud ain't a bad thing. Mud can give us perspective. The mud we've been in can give us perspective of how beautiful it can be to be polished. And therefore, I know that we're all part of a broken world, a dysfunctional home. But I think God loves us so much that He gives us the ability to receive the love of God and give it into other lives. And I think that's what I've done with people. I believed in people. I believe God loves people. And I believe if I could just love people with the love of God, not we don't have it in ourselves. We run out of God's love. We run out of love sometimes. And Romans 5:5 says, God has to pour His love again into a heart to be able to continue to love on other people. So, but I just believe in people. I somehow just believe in people. And there are some people who test that. Man, they put every nerve. They tell me, I've had people walk up to me and say, why do you still believe in me? I ain't worth believing in. And I go back wondering, yeah, that was a genuine question. That was a genuine question. Why exactly do I believe in this person again? And then I think about how God loves them. And many, many times I've been on the phone with people, on calls with people, and I told myself, you have to give up on this person. There's just no way. But I told, and while I'm on the phone, I tell the Lord, I said, Lord, if you believe in this person, I still want to believe in this person. And I want to be the one who's going to continue to believe in this person if you brought them into my life. So I think that's the key. If you're in touch with God, you connect with God, I think God just gives you the grace to continue loving. Now, I can't promise it's going to be easy, but I'm going to tell you it's going to be worth it. It's going to be absolutely worth it.
Yeah.
Thank you for that, Dr. John. I want to now just turn to an interesting topic of our physical body, right? Our body is the carrier of the purpose, the carrier of our dreams. Um, as a medical doctor, I would like to know your thoughts about how any unhealed issues that we have in our heart or our mind can cause us to neglect our bodies. For example, if we have stresses, emotional pains, we can take it out on bad eating habits, other addictive behaviors. What can we learn from what our body is telling us about what we might be missing?
Well, I think there are different kinds of people. When it comes to the body, there are people some that are wounded, and there are others who are just ill-informed. For the wounded, we need to see how we can take them on the journey of healing. But the ill-informed, we need to figure out how to get them on the journey of being educated about it. Now, um, when we have a dysfunctional mind, a wounded mind, a broken mind, uh, what I've seen is that people struggle with pain. And people try to use things in their life as a balm to that pain. I've seen a lot of people get into sexual addiction because they find pleasure from that. But what a lot of people do not know is that they use that pleasure to balm an unresolved pain. Some others get into drugs, some into drunkenness, or into and if some like me got into workaholism. I never knew that workaholism, in some sense, was, if you may, some kind of OCD, an obsessive compulsive disorder. I never knew it. I thought just washing hands all the time was an OCD, or trying to scrub the place clean all the time was an OCD. I never knew that being a workaholic was an OCD until one day I woke up to the fact, hey, wait a minute, why am I working like this so much? And I realized I was trying to prove to the world that I wasn't that Dumbo that everyone compared me to my older brother who was a wizard. My brother is such an intelligent man. Um, Intelligent man. He's got multiple medical degrees. He's a surgeon. He's an orthopedician. He's a general physician. He's so much all of that and so much more. And in a growing up years, we were compared with our siblings. You look at him, he's smart. You're smarter. You need to do well. You can. And there was a lot of wounds in my heart that left me wanting to perform, wanting to be better than all of them, wanting to be all of that. And so, as a result, what was my strength? My strengths were different. My strengths were human resource management. I could handle people. I could handle pressure. I could handle problems. I could handle plans. I could come up with strategies. I could figure out ways to get critical things done in easier ways. That's my strength. So what my brother could do in 20 minutes, I would go out and do in 5. And they say, hey, you're the smartest. You do it much faster than him. Therefore, everything he achieved and so much more, you must. Hey, wait a minute. Because I have certain skills, you're saying I must do much more than him. But I ended up getting into performance addiction and becoming a workaholic. And even after I encountered Christ, because I did not know that my workaholism was stemming from this performance addiction, I kept working like that to try to prove to everybody
Wow.
that even though I knew Jesus, I was accepted in the Lord, I loved God, I was excited. I came into the ministry and I struggled. I would struggle to find anyone catching me sleeping because I would think if they saw me sleeping, they'd think I'm lazy. I can't let anybody think I'm lazy. I got to work hard and wake up. And, if you know me, I'm talking about 20 years ago, you'd find me sleeping in those days. I'm talking about those days with a to-do list next to my pillow and a pen and a to-do list. Because I would wake up in the middle of the night with a brilliant idea, and I didn't want my to-do list and my pen or my notes, my notebook and my pen to be far away from me. Because if I dreamt a great dream that I wanted to pursue, I wanted it to be written down so I wouldn't forget it in the morning. I was driven until one day I told myself, wait a minute, a wounded mind, a wounded heart is going to stop you from your destiny. It's going to affect your health. What happened? I started working and working and working and working and working nonstop. Through my medical years, some of you may have experienced it, some of you may not. Where I was trained in medical college, we would go into work on some days, not all days, some days. We'd go into work on a Sunday morning, 8 o'clock. In some weeks, I mean. People say we're overworked. Oh, yeah? Well, listen to this. We would go into work on Sunday morning, 8 o'clock in emergency medical casualty. And we'd come back from work nonstop, without sleep. We'd come back from work Tuesday evening, 7 o'clock.
Wow.
Sunday morning, 8 o'clock, working all through the day. And the nursing shifts would change, then the afternoon nursing shift would come, they'd go in the evening, the night nursing shift would come, they'd come in the morning. When they come back, the next morning's nursing shift comes back after a whole day of going home. We're still working. We haven't gone home. We haven't slept. We haven't eaten anything. And then they go the second day, they've gone home after work. We work through the second day, we work through the second night. They've come back the third day and we haven't gone home. We've been working. Well, and we worked like that. And I told myself, you know what? We're really good. Not knowing that my body was going to break down really soon. I was 22 years old when I went through my first physical breakdown. And I was 28 years old when I went through my first emotional breakdown.
Wow.
And when I look back in life, I didn't have to. But I went through my physical breakdown because I was working all day. And after long hours of working, 12 hours, 14 hours, sometimes 24, 30 hours, I would go straight into meetings after that, do Bible studies, not sleep for a couple of days, to the extent that one day I just broke down. My body just broke down, a physical breakdown. It took me 3 months to heal out of that. It was a very difficult phase of my life. Age 28, I was going through such tremendous emotional trauma. Broken relationships in my life that I was trying to mend, people I was trying to help, and they accuse you, they walk out on your life. I was a young guy, I didn't know how to handle all this. And I went through emotional trauma, and I went through my first emotional breakdown. In fact, I was asked by my leader to get out of ministry for 3 months. I was mandatorily asked by my leader. He said, you need to be healed. You need to step out of ministry. You're not going to preach anymore. I said, I'm not going to preach anymore. And I just got married. I'm talking about straight after my marriage. I asked my leader, how am I going to feed my wife? And he looked at me, he said, don't worry, God will take care of that and you'll figure it out. But you're going to go off on 3 months. I'm asking you to take 3 months off. Those 3 months off really healed me.
Mhm.
It took me time. In fact, I remember I went to the market. When I got married, my wife, she married a mess. I would wake up in the morning, and this is during a honeymoon, and I'd be staring at the ceiling. And my wife, she was wondering, hey, this man of God, he's supposed to be having his quiet time and reading the Bible, and I'd be staring at the ceiling, and I wouldn't be reading the Bible. I wouldn't be praying. I was just so broken in my heart. 1 day, 2 days, 3 days. At the end of 3 weeks, I was my mind was just so confused. I looked at her and I said, can we go to the market and buy a notebook? She said, why? I said, I can't think straight. I want to write my thoughts down. We bought a notebook, and of course, she went on the journey with me. And this is our honeymoon, for crying out loud. I wrote 64 pages
Hmm.
of my emotions. And for a guy like me to write 64 pages, if you know me, I write points. I don't write stories, I write points. But I wrote 64 pages of the emotions I was going through. And then we went through that and we prayed through it. And suddenly it made sense. Oh, this is the problem. And if we are not emotionally healed, I couldn't sleep well. Because I was of a wounded mind, became a workaholic. Because I was of an unhealed heart, as a hurting person, I would hurt other people. Because I was, I was compared with everybody else, I became a performance addict. And then I just knew in my heart, and some, of course, some people go into binge eating, some into drug addiction, some into pornography, some into all of that. But I want you to know there's no healing anywhere, any of those places. One day I came back to God and I said, God, I really want to be healed. And the Lord began to pour his love on my heart and tell me, John, if you can just receive the fact, the truth, that I love you just the way you are, that you are precious, you're fearfully and wonderfully made. When the truth began to get in my mind, I sat back one day and I said, what am I doing to myself? And and I remember telling my wife, I said, I need to go to sleep. And I looked at her and I said, and I need to stop worrying about what you think about me if I sleep. I need to sleep. I want to sleep, for crying out loud.
Mhm.
And I had to begin the journey. My wife, of course, helped me on the journey. She began to appreciate me and tell me who I was. And if you know me, I'm not somebody who needs a lot of appreciation, but she had to go the extra mile to help me. So God brings people into your life. You need God's love. You need an exposure to truth from God's word. And you need a healthy dose of God's people around you to help you do the journey. If any of you are going through any of this, I want you to know it's not worth walking that journey alone. There are people that can help you. Maybe you could, reach out to Joey and Jane, and they could also help you on this journey, and they could maybe, help you. You don't have to do this journey alone. I didn't do the journey alone. God brought people into my life. God brought leaders. God brought my wife. God brought other people into my life. As much as I was a healing to many thousands around the world, God brought others into my life as a leader to be a healing to me. So none of us have to be alone on this journey. Suicide is not the answer. Homicide is not the answer. You decide that you're going to receive God's love into your heart. That you're going to allow people that, and it's okay. Hey, guess what? I'm a leader. I've been a go-getter. I've been a success story. My name's been in the papers. I've been all of that and so much more. But I was still afraid to take help. And I want you to know, taking help changed my life. And if you
Wow.
can reach out, if you want to know God, reach out to someone who knows God. If you want to be healed in your heart, reach out to someone who's done that journey. If you have a broken marriage, reach out to someone who can help you with your broken marriage. If you're struggling in your studies, reach out to someone who's done that journey. Reach out. I want you to know it's not weak people who reach out,
Mhm.
it's strong people who reach out. And I want you to be a strong person because you have strength enough to say it's okay to be weak. You're not ashamed of that. You don't have to be ashamed of that. And I want to promise you, if you do that, if you reach out to somebody, you will reach your destiny because that's the first step, of pursuing your passion and your purpose and reaching out to God and reaching out to man.
Wow. Wow. Thank you, Dr. John. I know we can continue this conversation for another, I don't know how many hours, but we have, almost reached the end of our time. So we want to first thank you so much for,
Thank you so much.
extending your precious time and allowing us to have this conversation with you. I'm sure we learned quite a bit. There's some few things even we might just go back and start chewing on further. And I'm sure it's going to be the same for all of you who watched us in this conversation. So feel free to share your comments, your feedback, subscribe to our channel. It's called Dreams to Destiny. And as Dr. John mentioned, no matter where you're watching us from, no matter how old you are, you're young or old, I just want to remind you as a concluding thought that you are born for such a time as this in history to fulfill a unique purpose, a dream, and a call. And if you're struggling, you have questions, you want help in terms of mentoring, coaching, more leadership training, feel free to reach out to us. You can reach out to Dr. John as well. And on that note, Dr. John, if we can just ask you, what are the ways people could, find you or reach out to you?
You can just sign in to drjohnjoseph@hotmail.com. You can find me on Facebook on the fan page, and that will be a great place. You can read my posts and things that I put up there, and articles and things that would really help you and bless you.
Thank you, everybody, again. Stay tuned. Have a great week, and God bless you.
God bless.